Many of the characters in The Sopranos are hypocritical and selfish, which becomes more apparent in later seasons. Tony shows signs of selfishness throughout the series. Take, for example, when his cousin, Tony Blundetto, is going through some real problems, but all Tony can do is rant about his maid and his gumar. The icing on the cake is when he says, "Why the f*** does this always happen to me?" Tony invokes Gary Cooper a lot, calling him the strong, silent type that we should all aspire to be. But Tony is the opposite of the strong, silent type. He complains just as much outside of therapy as he does in therapy. He doesn't like what Dr. Melfi has to say about his mother, so he flips her table over and threatens to smash her face into a million pieces. And when people go to him with their problems, he often brushes them off, telling them they go about in pity for themselves. Genetics plays a powerful role in how our children turn out. Nurture plays a role too, but we can't deny that Meadow Soprano has inherited or learned some of her father's selfishness. There's an episode where Tony is drunk and sitting at the table. He tells Meadow while people say she's like her mother, she's all him. Sure, she doesn't have the violent temper her father does, but she can be selfish and hypocritical. Tony comes home frustrated one day because he controlled himself to not cheat on his wife. So he rages about there not being any smoked turkey in the fridge. In an earlier season, Meadow's boyfriend breaks up with her, and she shows similar frustration in the kitchen. She goes from cupboard to cupboard with haste and yells, "Is there nothing to eat in this house?" Meadow can be petty, whiny, and bratty. Tony wakes up nauseated and feverish. He's in obvious pain. Carmela tells the kids that their father ate at an Indian restaurant, and all Meadow can say is, "That is so racist." So instead of showing concern for her father being sick, the more pressing issue is the politically incorrect thing her mother said. One time she argues with her parents over her wanting to take a year off from college to go to Europe. She insults her parents and sarcastically says that she forgot about the pivotal work ethic in the family. She even mocks her father by calling him Mr. Mob Boss. I'd say her behavior could get a pass, because her boyfriend Jackie Jr. was shot to death. But her comments about work ethic relate to something I'll mention in a bit. It happens in the episode Unidentified Black Males, and this episode solidified my position that Meadow Soprano can be a selfish, hypocritical, and just plain annoying character at times. Let's think back to the day of Jackie Jr.'s funeral. Jackie Jr.'s sister, Kelly, correctly clarifies what really happened to her brother. She tells them to stop with the lies that her brother was murdered over drugs, and explains he was murdered because he wanted to be like their father, who used to control all the crime in North Jersey. She says that he was shot by a fat in see-through socks. I don't know if Vito wore see-through socks, but he certainly looks like someone Tony would call a fat. But what does Meadow do? She tells Kelly she has no basis to say that, and accuses her of insulting their family in front of an outsider. But Kelly is right. Kelly is grieving too. She is Jackie's sister after all. Kelly has every right to say what happened to her brother, only to be yelled at and insulted by Meadow, who shows just how ignorant she is. To understand just how selfish Meadow can be, let's analyze the episode Unidentified Black Males from the perspective of Meadow's boyfriend, Finn DeTrolio. Finn's having dinner at a restaurant with Meadow, Tony, and AJ. Finn gets up from the table and the waiter comes by. Tony's about to pay, but the waiter says the young man took care of it. Finn comes back and says he did it because he wanted to reciprocate, since Tony's always so generous. Tony tells him, "You're lucky you don't get your head handed to you. You eat, I pay. When you're with your family, you pay." Tony tosses money on the table and walks off. Meadow tells Finn to just take the money. So already, Finn is experiencing some aggression from the Soprano environment, but nothing extreme. Outside the restaurant, Tony tells Finn he appreciates him trying, and apologizes for snapping at him. The episode has a lot of scenes with high humidity on display. The two Tonys are outside drinking beer. Tony has a cooling pack on his head. The guys on the job site are fanning themselves, and you can see the perspiration on Meadow and Finn in their apartment. I think this hot, humid, and sweaty symbolizes the heat or tension characters are feeling. Finn is fearful, and Tony realizes that his cousin is the shooter of Joey Peeps. And why was Peeps on the tombstone? Peeps, it's a f***ing nickname. This hot weather could also symbolize the war that's brewing between the New York and New Jersey families. Finn comes home and tells Meadow that his parents haven't offered him any financial relief, but instead offered him a ticket home. Meadow asks him why he didn't go to the student placement office. Finn implies it's futile in the current economy, and says even the crappiest minimum wage jobs aren't available. He ponders just going home, because he'd have the opportunity to make some money working as a photographer for a friend's dad, which he may even want as a career. Meadow is exasperated, telling him he'll just be blowing off dental school. She shouts at him, telling him he bitches every time she asks him to take a photo of her and her friends. Meadow does make some good points that show that she can actually be selfless, not just selfish. She reminds Finn that she gave up her senior year abroad so they could be together, and at least she offers to transfer to UCLA if Finn decides to go out west. And the high humidity would make anyone irritable. They're sweating, their air conditioner is broken, and you can see their perspiration. Finn says it's roasting in here and suggests they go to a movie to escape the heat. Later, Finn is sitting in the apartment and Meadow returns and tells him that her dad got him a job working construction. Finn is happy but says he doesn't have any experience. Meadow says he'll just be working as a laborer. When she tells him it pays $20 an hour, Finn says, "Holy shit." Let's keep in mind that the episode aired in 2004. Adjusted for inflation, $20 is about $32.51 today. Finn asks how his landing a job paying that much is even possible. We know the answer. It's because Tony made it happen. Through intimidation and extortion, he's able to influence and control unions. Later, Meadow's out shopping with Carmela. Carmela says she's decided to move ahead with the divorce. Meadow asks her what she plans to do about life and tells her that she should think beyond being dependent on some man. She tells her mother that things can be easy for people that don't expect everything to be handed to them, and throws in that Finn got himself a job working construction. We know this isn't true. Even Meadow knows it isn't true, since Finn got the job without even knowing it until Meadow told him. The same man who got a job for Finn is the same man that Meadow was telling Carmela not to be dependent on. This shows how insincere and bratty Meadow can be. You could argue she's naive, but I don't think that's the case here. Speaking of naive, Tony shows how naive he is at his therapy session. "Carmela and I slept together," he tells Dr. Melfi. He says she was starving for it, and that he's the only guy she's ever been with. But we know that Carmela slept with Anthony's teacher on perhaps more than one occasion since the separation. Finn's on the job doing actual work, while Tony's guys sit down, eat donuts, talk about women and baseball, and break each other's balls. Polly pulls up and calls Finn Shaggy and tells him to clean the dog shit off his tires. Finn says he is supposed to pick up scrap, and Polly tells him to get a move on or he'll be picking up his teeth. Finn's supervisor, or boss, hints for him to get back to work, but Polly tells him to get f***ing lost. It's obvious who really runs things, but Finn is probably confused. When Polly finds out Finn is dating Meadow, he gets someone else to clean his tires and shoves cash in Finn's pocket. Polly went from hostile to aggressively friendly in about a minute. Finn's further nervous and confused. Later on the job site, breaking balls goes too far for Eugene Pontecorvo. Little Polly is not yet a made guy, so other made guys can raise their hands to him without repercussions. Eugene tells Little Polly that the last skank he was with Must have been like kissing a fireman. Little Polly quips, "You oughta know, sweetie." Seconds later, Eugene smashes a bottle on Little Polly's face and kicks him while he's down. Little Polly is bleeding. Finn gets sick at the sight of this brutality. When Finn tells Meadow about this at supper later on, her response is, "Eugene Pontecorvo? He's so sweet." Again, this proves she's naive. She knows her dad and his friends are in the mafia. She knows that the 6,000 square foot house she grew up in was paid for by illegal streams of money. Finn adds that they were laughing at the violence, that it was sick. He's so shaken up by what he witnessed that he's finding it hard to eat his chili. Finn asks Meadow if this is the sort of thing she grew up seeing, and she goes into a disingenuous story about the poverty of the Mezzogiorno and different modes of conflict resolution when her ancestors still lived in Italy. But what does this have to do with what Finn witnessed at the job site? Nothing. She's being disingenuous. She could have shown some appreciation for his concern. Finn asks about her boyfriend who got shot to death. Meadow says his death had nothing to do with her environment and that he was shot by African American drug dealers. And think about the way she said it. African Americans, if it makes you feel any better. Why would that make him feel better? Is she projecting? In reality, her boyfriend was shot by Vito, her dad's top-earning captain. Again, she's either naive or lying. She comes off as uncaring. It's go to work, Finn, don't complain, and eat my chili. Finn goes to work early and nods to the security guard in the parking lot, but he sees Vito pop up from what appears to be the guard's lap. When Finn later finishes up in the porta-potty, he's greeted by Vito. Finn's visibly scared. His voice is shaky and he flinches when Vito shows him 2 tickets to the Yankees game. Finn tries to nicely decline, but Vito just says, "You're f***ing going." Finn has this, "Oh my, what am I going to do now?" look. Meadow later gives him a hard time for not going to the baseball game, and he says he doesn't want to return to the job site. Her selfishness shows. She makes it all about her. "I'm going to hear so much bullshit," she says. She brings up the strings her father had to pull to get him that job. When Finn tells her what he saw, she says Vito Spatafore is a married man. Again, this shows she's naive. And she's downright willfully ignorant when she accuses Finn, whom she calls Dr. DeTrolio, of thinking he's too good to hang out with the common folk. Think about the money Tony's captains make. They're not exactly common, and probably earn way more than your typical dentist. Finn is thinking about going home until the thing with Vito blows over, and understandably so. After what he witnessed at work with Eugene, should he really be reassured by Meadow that Vito won't harm him? Meadow notices Finn's suitcase. Finn explains that he took it out in the process of thinking about leaving, and he's not intending to leave. He's just thinking out loud because he's afraid. Even so, Meadow shouts at him and cries and runs off. Later, when it's 4 o'clock in the morning, Finn is falling asleep and Meadow yells at him, asking him how he can sleep during their fight. When you think about it, he has been doing laborious work since the crack of dawn. He has every right to be tired. Meadow ends up running in the washroom and shutting the door. Finn listens to her in there sobbing. She should be consoling him, but he consoles her instead. Finn is selfless in this situation. He calms Meadow down and suggests they get married. She's happy with this and later calls her mom to tell her the good news of their engagement. So Meadow Soprano can be selfish. Sure, we can argue she's not as selfish or anywhere near violent as her father. But Meadow doesn't have to be. She can relax and enjoy the fruits of her father's activities. Maybe she gets some of these traits from Carmela too. After all, Carmela used veiled threats to get her neighbor's sister to write Meadow a college recommendation letter. Thank you very much for watching. If you are enjoying this content, please consider subscribing because that motivates me to keep making more content like this. And I want to thank everybody that has subscribed to this channel. I have surpassed 1,000 subscribers. I have surpassed actually over 1,100 subscribers as of this recording here. Watching films, it's something that I really love to do. It's something I do in my spare time. So if I can, build somewhat of a community here with this channel, then that's awesome. So I encourage everybody, keep on engaging, keep on commenting, give me some recommendations. My name is Justin Tobin, and thank you for watching.